My name is Fernando Montenegro. I'm a principal analyst within the information security practice at 451 Research, now part of S&P Global Market Intelligence. My main coverage areas are endpoint security and cloud security. So ransomware has evolved. It has moved beyond what was simply a quick smash and grab into a much more sophisticated attack. Even if the initial intrusion might be a little opportunistic, what ends up happening is that as soon as attackers have a foothold in, they will move laterally, they will try to understand what your environment looks like, they'll escalate privileges and so on, until they have much better footprint into your organization. Then they'll exfiltrate data, and only later will they actually fire off encryption across your environment in a more visible way. This has a consequence that for organizations, the impact of ransomware is much larger. Not only you have to deal with the financial consequences of that, but you also have to deal with much deeper and larger oversight from regulators, governments, insurance, other business partners, and so on. I think there's quite a few factors that explain why current security architectures and security controls have trouble dealing with ransomware. First of all, security teams are often overloaded and don't have enough time to fine-tune the security controls that they have to great depth. That's one problem. Another problem is that attackers know what security controls exist, and attackers can go on and try to disable those controls as they move laterally within the environment. Lastly, there's the issue of security alerts. What ends up happening often is that security teams are inundated with alerts and don't quite know how to move on with the information that they are getting. So taking this together, the lack of time to configure things, the fact that those controls may be disabled, and even when they do generate alerts, having those alerts be meaningful enough for security teams to respond, all this together leads to problems detecting current ransomware. I think there's different things organizations should do as they look to protect themselves from what ransomware has become on multiple angles. First of all, they have to think through what the threat landscape looks like right now. So ransomware has changed, and as we discussed. So what this means is, from a planning perspective, you have to, for example, assume that the potential compromise will happen, and then you game out how you defend against those attacks as they progress. Just because you're planning that the attack is going to happen doesn't mean you let it happen. So the second thing you should do is, to the extent that you can, work on the basic protection for your environment, right? Sometimes people refer to it as security hygiene. You're trying to minimize the chance that there will be opportunistic attacks that could escalate into something else. And then the third thing is, as you deploy security controls, as you deploy analytics, to what extent can you do further analysis and surface, for example, alerts that are more meaningful so your security team can react appropriately. So those are the three high-level things to start with. I would add another one, which is, to what extent can you consider new concepts and new architectures as a way of potentially addressing the problem? Just as an example, one area that may be worth looking into is something that's called active defense, which is the idea of changing the environment to make it more hostile to the attacker. Again, might be something to look into, but taken together, you're looking at planning better, you're looking at preparing your defenses, you're looking at analyzing the results that are coming out of those defenses, and then finally considering possible future architectural, conceptual changes to your environment.